All right, thank you everybody for being here today. I'm joined with Director Alviti and Secretary Tanner. We've got the Colonel here as well, and our Emergency Management Director Mark, along with Sabina Matos, our Lieutenant Governor, and really talking to provide an update on the Washington Bridge response. So we want Rhode Islanders really to know that we have a strong team in place, just like any other emergency that we've addressed, which we've addressed many and been very successful at. There's no reason to believe that the same thing is not going to happen in this case as well. So we want to make sure that we've mobilized quickly yesterday. The director gave me a call late afternoon yesterday and explained the observations that I had made over a few days to make this determination in a real thoughtful way. And once the director gave me his advice, we moved quickly and shut down the bridge on the west transportation side. So early this morning, I was with Director Alviti and his chief bridge engineer at the Washington Bridge, and to get an overview, first-hand look at why the bridge is being closed, and the director will talk about that, and also what's the plan, and how do we lower the inconvenience of something that could have been a very disastrous potential, and that's what we avoided. And now we're dealing with an extreme matter and a highly inconvenient one for people that are using that bridge, and we're looking to minimize that, and we're going to talk about how everybody's role here is to make that happen. So we're one of the things that is certainly discussed in our meetings last night, as late as 11 o'clock last night, was the idea of emergency vehicles. I want to also thank people who are being very collaborative in their efforts to exchange their thoughts about how we can reduce this inconvenience that we're going to share, with the understanding that safety is the absolute top priority. So the collaborative thoughts that are coming our way, either through text or over the media, we're considering each and every one of them, and we really are, we really appreciate individuals out there that understand that unavoidable circumstances like this need to be addressed in a way that is done in a measured way, and we appreciate. I got a call from Senator Felag this morning, who was impacted in some ways, and he outlined, multiple ideas, including the Newport Bridge we'll talk about, and other ways to kind of lower the travel count on a daily basis. So I want the people to know that their positive type of approach to this is very important to us. Yesterday, our administration contacted Senator Jack Reed. We've had contact with our congressional delegation. I just got off a phone call with Secretary Pete Burbage. He was very much aware of what was going on, but also that he didn't have all the details. And after he heard that we avoided a problem that we've seen happen in ways where the problem actually caused collapsed bridges throughout the country, he was very, very complimentary of our leadership team here to be able to address a problem before it happened. So we're going to continue those conversations with the Secretary, and we've exchanged our phone numbers so that we can keep up to date with one another. I've invited them to come to the state and look at the great work that's going on, but also this work here, which is another in a long line of issues that we have to address on an emergency basis. And Mark and the Colonel and others have had extreme experience on that. So we know we have the leadership team in place. So Director Pappas, thank you. Proactively getting on the phone with me late last night, talking about these very issues on the early stages of putting the plan together. Rhode Island Commerce as well, is in frequent communications with the City of Providence, City of East Providence, and we want to make sure that shortly after this press conference, we'll be meeting with all the municipal leaders and their emergency management teams to get their take on what is currently happening in their communities and how we can address these issues that are going to impact families and businesses. So Secretary, where you are down there, thank you for working on that. Of course, Lieutenant Governor, working with small businesses and the business community at large. We want to make sure that we are in direct communications with them, and as we have been. And we'll continue to work closely with Secretary Tanner's office to make sure that whatever disruption potentially could be happening, and once we identify what that looks like, we will proceed. I do have, going back to thanking people for their input, I talked to a friend of mine that was traveling from Riverside today. I just got off the phone with him. He explained these pockets of congestion that are happening. So we really need the municipal leaders to help us identify if there are pockets of congestion that we need to address. And I think that what's going to happen is we know immediately with working with Providence and East Providence, but I talked to the mayor of East Providence today as well. And right now East Providence is certainly getting the brunt of this detouring on the traffic. So right after this briefing, like I said, we're going to with the team that's in front of you, we will be working with all the cities and towns in the state, just like we do on a normal type of an emergency, which is like on the snowstorms, where we have direct contact with the municipalities, and we plan to have daily contact with the communities, all the communities, but in particular, as the communities kind of determine who's being impacted, who's not being impacted, we've got to make sure that we're communicating with municipal leadership. I just came back from a wreaths across America in Pontiac High School. I traveled all the way up Route 6, all the way up Route 10, all the way into the State House. There are areas of the state of Rhode Island that are going to just be, business as usual. And we got to kind of really bring it down to those spots that have the most inconvenience, and then lower that inconvenience as much as we can. And I think it's in minutes. Did it take you 25 minutes to get over the bridge from point A to point B on a normal day? And now we got to measure what that now is. Is that 50 minutes now, or is that an hour? We got to communicate to people what the time frame is on the particular trips, and also try as best we can lower that count that actually going to use the bridge by finding other options for them. So our response team, you see here today, will continue to work across state government, local government, and with business community to ensure an efficient and coordinated response while DOT works to get the bridge reopened as soon as possible. I want to really recognize the team that DOT has out there. I met them today. I met the engineer, the young engineer that actually identified what Peter's going to describe to you as a situation where there was no choice in the matter. We need to make sure that safety is the overriding message that we deliver to the people in the state, and also working with our leadership to minimize that, as I say, it's an extreme inconvenience that's going on right now. We want to minimize that. So our shared goal, again, is to keep residents safe, work collaboratively and collectively to minimize the inconvenience of the roadway, and also make sure that we're clarifying anything that's out in the public's eye, where we need to make sure that we are really delivering the accurate information so that they can schedule their family's affairs accordingly. So as we work together, we want to hear from municipal leaders, as I said. I repeat that, our local businesses, other organizations, to keep the lines of communication open, our emergency management teams, our emergency response teams. I think that we have set up a very reasonable and strategy that's going to allow emergency vehicles to travel across the bridge in a way where they should not be impaired in terms of their time and the critical nature of their work. So I would just leave it at that. As new things arise, we're going to continue to inform people in the state of Rhode Island, and again, asking everybody to be understanding that this is an event that cannot be avoided and cannot be predicted. And like I said yesterday, late afternoon, Peter did the right thing to come to me and give me the advice, and we took that advice as we should from the professionals that are doing the work, and this is where we are right now. So we'll have Peter next to make his comments, and I'll stand by for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. You've heard me say earlier today and yesterday, the sequence of events here was that, as with all of the structures that we have in our bridge system in Rhode Island, this is one of the older bridge structures. We started out 7 years ago identifying over nearly 30% of our bridges in our inventory were structurally deficient. And over the last several years, we've begun the process of rapidly rebuilding that bridge inventory. And many of the bridges, even over the last 8 years, like this one, got older as we were rebuilding the worst ones and have gotten to the point where we need to repair them also. We have a regular and routine bridge inspection program that inspects all of our bridges on various schedules depending upon the severity of their condition. Our engineers keep a very well-managed inventory of them. This bridge was last inspected in July. I know that we've had various times, August, July, and that information is coming to me as fast and furious during this process, so there's a bit of confusion as to when it was, but the records that we have that they've showed me is that the last inspection on this bridge happened in July. It was in good condition. There were no failures at the locations that the failures took place. But as with many bridges we found in our inventory that we have fixed, some 300 bridges that we've already fixed in our inventory, we still have many to go. And when they get to the end of their useful life, as this one is, the deterioration can accelerate. And that's what happened with this bridge. There are, on each side of the bridge, 8 pins that are anchor pins that hold major beams in place that, as old bridges like this go, if one pin becomes deficient, then it can have a compounding effect on the other pins in the bridge, and that's what happened in this case. The young engineer that we have working on the bridge adjacent to this structure noticed during the reconstruction of the new bridge that we're building, noticed the failure of one of the pins. He brought this to the attention of his supervisor on Friday. His supervisor acted quickly to get our bridge engineers and other consultant experts that we brought in to take a hard look at the rest of the structure. Over the weekend, they did an intense investigation of all of the other components of this bridge, and they found other deficiencies that were happening in a kind of a cascading way on this bridge structure. They settled down. They did an analysis over the weekend of the condition and the various alternative methods to repair those deficiencies, whether they could be temporary shored or whether or not it would take a longer-term approach. They did a full analysis on it, and on Monday midday provided me with a report that not only had determinations on the advancement of the structural deficiencies here, but also what the remedies should be. So they gave me the problem and the solutions. There was a unanimous consensus between myself and all of the engineering staff that the prudent thing to do, the safe thing to do, although a difficult thing to do that we don't do very lightly here, was to close the bridge to traffic. That was a decision that was made in order to keep of paramount concern here at DOT the safety of the 90,000 people a day that travel over that bridge. It is a tough decision to make because you're affecting the lives of 90,000 people on a daily basis, where every minute is multiplied by 90,000, where every hour that they lose is multiplied by 90,000. But the one thing that we always protect against, the one loss that we protect against here at DOT is the loss of life. So he made the decision to close the bridge, as much of an inconvenience as it would provide, in order to do the fix that we need to do. In parallel to those efforts, another group of engineers and planners here, in conjunction with the governor and his staff and the emergency management of the state police, put together a plan to systematically close traffic to the bridge and implemented that flawlessly. I have to commend the state police and the help that they gave us in closing down the bridge. They basically cut off the flow of traffic to it in a very systematic way from the various on and off ramps, sequentially, eventually down to the main thoroughfare. And they effectively closed the routes to traffic within a matter of, I think, an hour or even less than an hour from the time we made the decision to go forward. While all of this was happening, our engineers were already at work finding solutions and the reconstruction and determining the schedule and the costs. Although costs are less of a concern right now, the major concern is to get this bridge safely repaired and reopened as quickly as we possibly can. The schedule that I have right now, and we're continually working to improve that so that if you hear times and schedules changing over the next few days, it's because we continue to do deeper dives and bring in as many additional resources as logistics will allow us to apply to this problem. We're hoping to accelerate the process, but right now, our engineers are confident that we can have a temporary two-lane opening to the westbound traffic that will utilize 2 lanes of the eastbound bridge that is adjacent to this. That temporary opening, they're working toward having opened within a 2-week period. We're going to try for even faster than that. As I said, we continuously have additional experts coming in to take a look to see if we can speed that up a bit. Because we know that, as I said, every minute a commuter loses, every hour a commuter loses is multiplied by 90,000 in terms of the state's economy and cost to the public. The next, in parallel with all of this, we have also already started work on the reconstruction of the pins that are deficient or that were severed. Those pins involve a much more detailed kind of construction that we estimate right now is going to take on the order of 3 months. People say, well, why can't you do it over a weekend or within 10 days? The fact of the matter is, in a similar circumstance in Pennsylvania, where they actually had a bridge fail, while we averted that, their fix was simply to fill in under where the bridge existed with soil and build a road on top of it as a temporary fix. That temporary fix took them 10 weeks. We're going to have our temporary fix in place and operating in 2 weeks. The final fix of the Pennsylvania Bridge isn't complete yet and won't be complete until 2024. So it's taken them more than a year to do the final construction of that bridge. In our case, our engineers are telling us they will have the final fix done to the main structure and back in full operation within 3 months. And again, we will be working on a daily basis to continuously update you with any additional resources that we may find that would be helpful in shortening that period of time. In the meantime, of paramount concern to us from the outset was to find solutions for emergency service vehicles to make their way from the East Bay to the hospitals on the West Bay. That's a vital concern not only to us, but also to the mayors and the rest of the emergency folks here at Rhode Island, in Rhode Island. We have found that there is a portion of the old bridge structure that we can use safely, and our engineers have certified that we can use at least that one lane of the old bridge for emergency vehicle purposes, police vehicles and rescue vehicles. We're creating that pathway for them to get from the East Bay to the hospitals in the West Bay very quickly, and we're setting up checkpoints that will be manned 24/7 to allow those emergency vehicles to pass through in the same amount of time, or maybe even less time than they were able to before the deficiency of this bridge came into play. We're working, as I said, to make sure that we get the bridges fixed so that regular commuters could get back and forth from the East Bay to the West Bay, and we're looking at other alternatives of doing that. We're refining on a daily basis. We will be refining the alternate routes that we have published and given to you all that people are using today. We're working with the mayors and the police departments on both sides of the river to be able to streamline those routes and make them as efficient as possible. Timing signals, additional signage, having actual police presence at certain intersections to help that traffic flow along those routes to enable us to get people as quickly as possible back and forth. We're also assessing, as we speak, the governor asked us to make an assessment of what travel times for people in various commutes were experiencing before all of this happened and what they are along these detours, so that we can get that data and information to folks having to make daily decisions about their routines and their and planning out their travel. Our folks are modeling that and working on that as we speak. I hope by the end of today we will have that information to disseminate to all of you so that you can report out to folks in terms of reasonable expectations of travel times along the various routes that we've set up. In addition to that, we're looking at other alternatives. The governor's staff has spoken to of the ferry owner that is willing to provide a ferry of upward that seats about 250 that may be able to provide service between Bristol and Providence. My transit staff and my engineers are currently working with both cities to see what the impact on and the needs for parking facilities at both locations would be, so that we can see if there's the possibility logistically to create that service and maybe provide a bit of relief. We're also, my transit folks are also working with RIPTA folks to see if we can increase certain services and get them on a route that would provide an additional alternative mode of transportation for people during this time. It's an all hands on deck kind of operation that we're in right now. We have many, many moving parts. From time to time, we try and report out on a continuous basis to you all with the information that we know at any point in time. As I said, some of that information may change as we find out more facts and get deeper into the issue. But the fact is that we averted a major catastrophe here. And the system and the checks and balances that we had in place and the command and control management that the governor has put in place in our department and throughout the other agencies actually worked this time, where many other locations throughout the country actually had to experience the worst catastrophe and the loss of human life. That was averted here through a good command and control structure that we had in place to assure the people of Rhode Island that we have a good control over this, and we will continue to monitor and surveil not only this bridge, but all of the many others that we have yet to reconstruct. We fixed 300 of them, but we have several hundred more to go. And I assure you, we have a close fix and understanding of the condition of every one of them, and we will fix them in order to avert the catastrophe that could happen. So with that, I'll open up to...
We're going to go to
questions.
Director,
Yes?
Director Pappas.
Yes, Director Pappas has a few words. And then we'll get to the questions.
Thank you, Director Alviti. Thank you, Governor. Just a few things. For us at EMA, we're very ready to handle a no-notice event. That's exactly what this is, no-notice event. So we got the call yesterday about 4 o'clock that the bridge was going to be closed. And so the first order of business for us was to make sure that the public was messaged out. So my comms team worked with the Governor's communications team and Director Alviti's communications team. We crafted a wireless emergency alert message that you all should have got, telling everybody that the bridge was closed and to seek alternate routes. I've been on calls yesterday and today, early this morning, with the mayors of the different impacted towns. I've talked to the Rhode Island Department of Health, especially for their EMS services, to make sure that rescues could make it to the Level 1 Trauma Center at Rhode Island Hospital. I have a call a little bit later today with all the East Bay Fire chiefs. I've talked to Rhode Island Energy about their concerns about being able to get over that bridge or around that bridge for any emergencies they happen to have. So there's been a lot of communication and coordination that happened already. There's going to be a lot more to come. One of the things that's most important to us is that we continue to talk to the municipal leaders, continue to talk to the emergency management directors in each city and town impacted, and figure out what those downstream effects are as they arise so we can triage it and fix it as quickly as possible. I'll leave it with that, and I'll turn it over to Colonel Weaver from the State Police.
So yesterday afternoon, we received a briefing outlining the fact that the Washington Bridge was going to be closed and what our role would be in that closure. We immediately formed a task force to make sure that we were in coordination with DOT and responding out to close all of the on-ramps to Route 195 westbound from the Massachusetts line to Broadway. We successfully did that in quick fashion, closed those on-ramps. Then we subsequently closed down the travel portion of 195 West to limit the traffic and have everyone diverted onto Broadway. Soon after that, we were also in direct communication with our partners in Providence PD, the East Providence Police Department, as well as the Massachusetts State Police, advising them of what was going on, and we're in constant communication, even currently, to ensure that as different areas of concern pop up, that we address those and respond to them in a quick manner. This is a very fluid situation, and things are going to come up, and we will be there to address them. And one of the main important things during that closure was public safety. During the course of closing the 195 West travel portions, there were 2 minor motor vehicle accidents with no injuries after the closure occurred, and there have been no additional accidents after those initial 2. And again, we will be constantly monitoring and assessing the situation and making sure that any issues are addressed promptly and quickly, and that public safety is the #1 concern, and addressing anything that comes up in a swift manner.
Director, wait, Secretary Tanner, and then we're going to do questions right after Secretary Tanner in an orderly fashion. Everyone will get their question answered.
What about Spanish with Sabina Matos after her?
Secretary Tanner.
Yes. Good morning. Shortly after the announcement was made yesterday, I started my quick communications with the Governor, of course, Directors Pappas and Directors Alviti, but also with Mayor Smiley and Mayor De Silva, as well as Mark Hayward from the SVA. We have not received any concerns from businesses as yet, but we know that many of them will be affected. We have set up a helpline, 529-HELP, or you can reach out to commerceri.com to send any concerns that you or your business owner might have as far as the bridge closure. It is our intention to communicate regularly via a webpage as well to provide information to our business clients as well. We're also having meetings today with both the Providence Chamber as well as the rest of the chambers and the trade associations, which may be affected in particular. If there's any business who would like to be part of that or a trade association, please reach out to the Commerce Corporation so that we can receive any information that you would like to receive or any complaints or concerns that you have, as well as making sure the message gets out that we know that this bridge closure will highly affect the businesses in both Providence, East Providence, and possibly even the Pawtucket area. And we want to make sure that you keep your dinner reservations, that you continue to shop small and shop local, and continue to support the businesses that are affected. Thank you.
Governor.
So Lieutenant Governor Matos is going to speak afterwards in Spanish, and we're going to get to questions, and it's going to go Gabrielle, then Patrick, and then Amanda, and we're going to make it to everyone in an orderly fashion. Gabrielle?
Governor, the bridge has been under construction for years. Does it concern you that nobody noticed a warning sign before it got to the point where such an abrupt closure was necessary?
Well, I think that the director mentioned that there was inspections that were done in July that didn't show any evidence of this, of the reasons that we shut down the bridge, and now we've discovered that, as he mentioned on Friday, they worked through the weekend. They notified me on late Monday afternoon, and decision was made to closure. So no, it doesn't. This is normal course doing business. We took down the independent man because we were inspecting the platform up there, and we noticed that it wasn't in trouble, so that we had to do something. It's the same scenario here. They were doing their work, inspecting properly, doing the inspections, and now they discovered a flaw that was recently discovered that happened sometime between the summer and today.
Nothing could have been done to identify that sooner?
We're going to do one question for outlets. There's multiple people.
No, that's good work
Patrick,
by the Department of Transportation and
Director
their
Al-
inspectors.
For Patrick.
For Director Alviti, this work on the Washington Bridge westbound has been going on for a number of years, and there was an earlier phase. Can you walk us through what happened in the initial phase of work that I believe was cut short, and then how that differs from what the work is that's happening now, and whether either of those phases related in any way to the pins and what is going on?
Right. So let me start in reverse order. To answer your last question first, the work that has been done out there in the past, this is a series of multiple spans across the Seekonk River and across the Providence River in both directions. So there are a large number of structures in that complex. As a result of there being that many structures, past years have addressed the deficiency on the eastbound side. Over the last 15, 20 years or so, we've seen a lot of construction happening on the eastbound side. That work was completed, and the eastbound side is relatively new construction and in good shape. On the westbound side, we are beginning on the East Providence end of the project, of the structures there. Those were identified as being the worst condition. 2 years ago, we started a contract with Cardi Corporation. They were not performing that contract in accordance with the agreement that we had with them. We terminated that contract with them. As it turns out, that was a very good decision at that point. Brought in a new contractor, design build team, that has been working on the easterly portions of the structures that span the Seekonk River. The part of the structure that was deficient and critical, and the pin that was actually anchoring some of the beams on a 1968 vintage portion of those bridge structures is what failed. Not related at all to the construction that we've done in the past, nor is it related to the current construction that we're doing, but it would be in a next or future phase of work in that sequence of structures that span the Seekonk River. And those pins were inspected on a regular basis. It's something that we did attend to. We knew that they were old. However, as I said, old structures tend to fail more rapidly once they begin to go. And in this case, between our inspectors and our construction engineers, caught it before it became a catastrophe.
What was done in phase one?
We're doing one question.
Is the follow-up the same question?
We're not. There's two people from the project here. We're going to do one question at a time, and then we'll go back. So it's Amanda, Ian, then Steve.
Okay, we'll get to you.
Okay, yeah, I have a similar question, but I guess I'll ask the governor this kind of a two-part question. You spoke to Secretary Buttigieg. Are you looking at declaring a state of emergency because of the impact of this issue? And if not, is anything going to be done to reimburse the municipalities who have to deal with it?
So yes, I think that we clearly are going to help the municipalities if they have to put additional public safety on duty to make sure that they control this travel situation. As far as the declaring a state of emergency, we'll continue to gather the information. We're going to be in contact with the Secretary's office, and he's made a commitment to really pay close attention and to follow through in ways that will help us. So we'll see what makes sense. In the snowstorm when Tom Brady retired, that nobody remembers, we made sure that there was a reason to call an emergency, and we were able to get federal dollars back to the tune of several millions of dollars. So we're very focused on the safety right now, but to answer your question, we're going to maximize as much of the federal return as we possibly can.
Ian?
Governor, you say this could not have been predicted, but some Rhode Islanders see this as a failure of state government. What is your message to those people?
I think we just answered it. Inspections were made in July, and there wasn't any reason to close the bridge. New discoveries were made on Friday of last week, and we felt as though it rose to the occasion. The people in the state of Rhode Island should feel very comfortable, whether it's an emergency that had to do with vaccinations, or emergency that has to do with a snowstorm, or emergency that has to do with travel. We've handled that with a professional team, and we intend to do it the same way. The people in the state of Rhode Island should feel very comfortable. They've got professionals working the job and engineers that are giving the advice, and not unprofessional non-engineers giving the advice.
Steve, Ed, then Bill.
Director Alviti, can you give us a sense of the size of these pins? I believe you said there were 8. Are they people-sized? Are they small? What are they made of? Do they have to be constructed, manufactured? How does that work?
So they're steel pins
All right.
that anchor one end of a cantilever beam down to the structure below it. They're about 1 3/8 inches in diameter and about 1.5 feet, 2 feet long, that go up into the structure above it and below it, that hold the cantilever in place. They're a critical component of this old style of construction. Not a style that we're using any longer, but it's been there since 1968.
You have to have them made, manufactured, or?
Both. We'll have them manufactured and made, and that's part of the logistics that we've already put in place to get the materials in to do the work.
And quick, do you have to lift the bridge to put these pins back into place?
There is a whole construction sequence that will take place. I don't think we're going to have to lift the entire deck. I think the repairs can be made in place. But that's what our engineers and the contractor, we have a design-build team working on this, as opposed to taking a longer period of time to design it and then send a contractor in to construct it. We've put the two together, and we're using a design-build team to simultaneously design the solution and begin the fabrication.
Ed,
Director Alviti, could you name the individual who spotted this on Friday? If he spotted it on Friday, why didn't you close the bridge then? Why wait till over the weekend?
Good question. That's a good question. There's a sequence of analysis that has to take place before you make the decision to close a bridge to 90,000 people a day who use it, right? And a young engineer who initially saw something that looked suspect to him took the initiative to bring that to the attention of his immediate supervisor, who is of more senior engineering position than him. That engineer looked at it and saw a concerning issue. He knew enough then to bring in the team of experts that we have at DOT and some outside consultants to seriously look not at just that issue, but the rest of the structure, to make a comprehensive analysis of what the actual condition and status of that structure is as of during this weekend. They've worked on it night and day through the entire weekend. They did their calculations and analysis on the strength remaining in the bridge, and made an analysis of various scenarios of remediating that deficiency. They came to a consensus early on Monday as to what they would recommend to me, and me in turn to the governor, and they presented the final report in their analysis and recommendations on midday on Monday. At the same time I received it, I notified the governor and other officials, the mayor of Providence and the mayor of East Providence, and our FHWA partner, that the deficiency has been deemed to be severe enough to have to close the bridge. We took the recommendation of these experts. Everybody accepted that as the safest way to proceed, and then everything else from there, we just described.
And what was the young engineer's name?
I met him this morning for the first time, and they introduced him to me, but I'm sorry, I don't remember. I'll get you the name.
It's going to be Bill,
He
Amy,
is to be commended.
Bill, Amy, and then Alex from 12.
Director, can you identify the phase and contract number based on the original procurement of the Washington Bridge project that these pins, that this breakdown is located in?
So it was part of the construction of the 1968 construction contract to build those structures over the Seekonk River. These pins have been in place. They were built at that time, had been in place since 1968.
But to clarify, in terms of ultimate reconstruction, at which phase and under which contract would these have been ultimately replaced?
It would be in a future phase.
Which one?
This would be, not sure the timing on that. I have to check with our planners as to when this would come up, but it would be a year or years down the line from where we are now.
Amy, Alex, and Chris, then Pat.
Director, last night you said the bridge was inspected about 2 months ago, and
Yes.
that these were regular inspections that happened. Today
Yeah.
you're saying it was about 5 months ago.
Right.
Why was that, and what do you have to say to Rhode Islanders who might feel their safety was really in jeopardy?
Yeah, I'm sorry that these discrepancies came up, but as I tried to report out to you all and to the citizens of Rhode Island, as quickly as I get information. During the last couple of days, as you can imagine, there's a lot of information coming in from parallel sources. And there was some mixed messaging in the timing on that. The final report that I've received today was, as I said it today, it was last inspected in July, not in August. It was last inspected in July. And subsequently, the construction engineer on site on an adjacent structure noticed the additional deficiency on Friday. That put into effect the sequence of work and analysis that I described earlier.
Alex, Chris, Pat, Brian.
Governor McKee, you mentioned you're not declaring a state of emergency at this time, but at the same time you're saying this is an all-hands-on-deck situation. Why haven't we issued one at this time? What needs to happen?
Well, that's a serious matter, declaring an emergency. There's got to be a reason for it, and that's, as the director says, the information that we're putting together, we haven't been even 24 hours yet. We made the correct calls into our congressional delegation, correct calls into the Secretary of Transportation. We're going to continue to do that, and then we'll see if it makes sense in terms of the recovery that we need. It's mostly a financial issue as opposed to anything else. So we'll address that in a timely way if in fact we need to do it. But if we can get the resources that we need just by conventionally going through the procedures, that makes the most sense. If a state of emergency, like I did talk about, the snowstorm in 21, there was a reason why we declared a state of emergency, because we needed to do that in order to qualify for the financing that we were able to recover. So that position is, Secretary of Burbage has acknowledged that he's going to provide us with resources, with personnel, with expertise and we're satisfied with that at this moment.
Director Alviti, it was mentioned that RIDOT is looking at working with RIPTA to find ways to, get more people on buses and ease congestion. Cities like Los Angeles and, in Pennsylvania with these highway closures, they've done, free bus fares. Is that something that RIDOT would be trying to look for?
All the alternatives are on the table for us to explore, and our transit folks here are working with the RIPTA folks to see what the best fit for the best solution for this problem is.
So is that among one of the solutions then?
It is among the solutions. Everything is on the table. I think the governor said we're open and looking at many ideas from various sources, but that is one that we're considering.
Pat, Brian, then Caitlin from 6, then Tom.
Director Alviti?
Yes.
Amplifying the RIPTA question, where does RIPTA stand in terms of potential bus lane as a first step towards reintegrating traffic and moving people across? And will you be reaching out? There's a very strong RIPTA advocacy community that has sort of sat as an informal board in the past. Will you be reaching out to them as well?
So during the last couple of months as chairman, we have had very active conversations with that constituency during our regular monthly meetings. I think you may have been at some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the dialogue between the RIPTA board and that constituency is beginning to take better shape. And we're committed to continue that process. With regard to bus-only lanes, that has not been the subject of design or implementation on this particular bridge structure that we're talking about right now, but it has been integrated into projects that we've just begun. And we're working with RIPTA, for example, to create one on the 146 corridor and other projects that we're doing in and around the state.
I'm speaking more of as an emergency response to getting RIPTA back in business over the bridge.
So RIPTA is going to have to use the same routes as other vehicles, because while we can use that one lane of the existing bridge for lighter vehicles like a rescue squad and police cruisers, we cannot use it for the heavier vehicles like buses or fire trucks. That is something I leave, and I depend on the advice and expertise of our structural engineers, and they've advised me that there's a cutoff point there.
Brian, Tom, then Ray.
Director, Go Local reported that an engineer brought up this issue during the bidding process a few years ago. Did this come across your radar screen?
I'm familiar with the report that they're citing, but the report that they're citing is on a completely different part of the bridge. So it had nothing to do at all with this issue. I think they reported it as being part of this issue, and it wasn't. This was the report they're citing was part of a proposal by Carty Corporation to reconstruct the portion of the bridge that we're currently reconstructing. Had nothing to do with the 1968 vintage bridge that exists, where this problem exists. So I don't know where they got their information or how they made that allegation, but it's completely false and wrong.
All right, given, if I could just follow up, given the importance of the pins, as you've said, and what it means if they fail, and how old they are, and you said there was a knowledge that they were old,
right.
Should there have been more attention paid to the pins? Should this problem have been discovered sooner and addressed sooner in an earlier phase so this mess could have been avoided?
No, as a matter of fact, we gave it the proper attention that we should, and we look at our bridges on a continuous rotating basis. This process never even existed before here at DOT, where our administration put that process in place to do that monitoring, and it worked. That process caught this at a point in time before a catastrophic event happened. So what you're seeing here is the system working.
Tom,
Director,
Ray, then Sebastian.
Can we get a copy of the report that you received yesterday detailing the pin deficiency?
Sure.
Ray?
¿Está bien en español, por favor?
Ray, then Sebastian.
Thank you. I'm going to make a comment in Spanish. Lo que estamos denunciando es que el cierre del puente que pasó ayer es para proteger a los habitantes del estado de Rhode Island. Este puente fue evaluado en julio y no se encontró nada, pero el trabajo que estaba pasando en un puente anexo, un ingeniero joven se dio cuenta de que algo estaba mal, notificó a su superior y los sistemas de controles de nuestro estado están funcionando porque ellos pudieron darse cuenta que algo estaba pasando, llamaron al equipo de expertos. Nosotros no tenemos la experiencia que tienen los ingenieros, no somos ingenieros, los ingenieros estaban acá, dieron recomendación al director y también al gobernador y se tomó la decisión de cerrar el puente para proteger las vidas de los habitantes de Rhode Island. Escuchamos desde los diferentes departamentos, es muy importante para los negocios. Si usted es un negocio que está siendo afectado, el Commerce RI, la secretaria de Comercio de Stanners, nos dio un teléfono que es 529-HELP. 529-HELP es el teléfono que pueden comunicarse con Commerce si están siendo afectados por este cierre. Gracias.
Sebastian González.
Una pregunta solamente. Sé que es muy larga la información, pero ¿se puede decir si se logró evidenciar qué fue lo que encontraron los ingenieros para cerrar el puente?
Lo que encontraron los ingenieros, como nos dijo el director, es que uno de los, tratando de traducir pin, uno de los clavos fuertes que sostienen el puente estaba fallando. Y un ingeniero joven se dio cuenta y notificó a sus superiores. Un equipo completo fue, analizó el puente y se dio cuenta que porque esta es una estructura muy antigua de los 60, de cuando se construyó ese puente, cuando algo falla muy rápido. Cuando una estructura así ya muy antigua falla muy rápido, y para evitar una situación en la que el puente pudo haber colapsado totalmente y que vidas puedan ser afectadas, se tomó la decisión de cerrar el puente.
Has everybody gotten one question? All right, we can do a couple more because we have 39 municipalities waiting for us. Steve.
Cost estimate to fix, will it exceed the cost of the initial project?
Cost has not been a factor in the last 2 days.
Understand.
Our attention to keeping people safe first, and then rapidly putting in place the fix to it. We will be creating the estimates of what the actual cost will be over the next few days, and we'll certainly report that out to you.
And economic impact, Secretary? Tim?
Yeah, and before Liz gets up here, that's the reason we're making the calls to the federal delegation to Secretary Burbage, and then talking to the question that was asked earlier. Cost does matter to us, and we want to make sure that the state of Rhode Island is doing everything we need to do to be qualifying for reimbursement, is impacting those reimbursements that we do.
Because I cut Patrick's follow-up. Patrick?
And just to clarify, Director, on what was done by Cardi in that phase one, that's the 2018 vintage work that resulted in the big traffic jam that had to get missed. What did Cardi do then? What was their scope of work, and why was that terminated?
Because they did, I think, the initial phases of the total reconstruction that we're currently doing of that portion of the Washington Bridge. And they were proceeding in a way that would have created considerable traffic tie-ups that were not, although there was some inconvenience in the way that we did it, they were unable to conform their methods to provide the kind of traffic flow on a continuous basis through that. Keep in mind, this is like building a plane as you parachute out of one, or building a parachute as you jump out of a plane. What we're doing here is we're rebuilding a structure under 90,000 vehicles a day, continuously allowing them to travel over it while we build the structure below them. And the phasing and the intricacies and the timing of that was something that the Cardi Corporation was not performing in accordance with our expectations. So we terminated their contract, went back out to bid for the remaining portion of the work, and the team that we brought in is conducting that work in the fashion that we had expected.
But they weren't doing the whole bridge at that point. Were they just doing a part of it?
They were originally contracted to do the whole bridge, but they had only just begun when it was clear to us they did not have the capability to carry out the remaining portion. As it turns out, it was a kind of a foretelling of the trouble that their company is in right now, and we would have been even in a more serious situation had we continued with that.
We're going to do two last quick ones, then we have to call it to. So Ian, then Brian, and then we'll do follow-ups after.
Director Alviti, why is it considered safe to have possible limited emergency vehicle traffic on one lane westbound if it's unsafe for a greater volume of traffic?
Yep. So the way the pins are laid out, they're kind of several pins that hold up various beams across the span of the bridge, the width of the bridge. The portion of the bridge on the southerlymost side, all of the pins are still intact in that section. And our structural engineers have, as part of the analysis that we asked them to do, have determined that that section of the bridge and that lane of the bridge can be used for this kind of an emergency purpose. We wouldn't allow it to be used for heavier vehicles and the normal kind of heavy load vehicles like tractor trailers and that go over it, but for a temporary use for emergency vehicles of the size of a rescue squad and or a police cruiser, there's adequate safe passage for them to be able to make it.
Brian's got the last one at this time.
Director, I know you went over the timeline and you're saying the system worked with the inspections and you catch it. But what do you say to people about how it went from basically all's fine to potential catastrophe where the bridge could collapse in no time? Is that surprising at all to you?
Unfortunately not. My experience during the last 8 years is that, as I said, when I got here 7 years ago, we had hundreds, almost 1,000 bridges that were in a state of structural deficiency. 27% of our bridge inventory was in it. We had the worst bridges in the country. I said that after I had done a complete assessment and inventory of every bridge in our inventory when I first got here. And we kept that inspection process going every year. But we also put in place a plan to fix them. And many people complain that we're fixing too many at one time with all of the construction that's going on. But the reason that we're doing so many at the same time is to try and keep ahead of any failures that may occur in that inventory of bridges that we found to be in a state of disrepair. And we've done that. And we manage our inspections and conduct and schedule the construction of every bridge that we're doing for the last 7 years and for the next 10 years, so that we will eventually work our way to all of our bridges and being in a state of good repair. But what took decades to get us into the serious condition we're in now is going to take some time for us to work our way out.
Well, you've gotten into this. Some people have said you've had 8 years. You've said there's a lot of construction going on. But what do you say to people who said you've had 8 years? You passed a major plan with the truck tools to fix it.
During that 8 years, we fixed over 300 bridges.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. We're going to get them onto the call. If you have follow-up questions or want to talk to the director after, follow up with Elizabeth and Charles, the governor, me, or Andrea. And thank you all again for coming and doing this orderly.